Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. I missed an episode, but that's okay. We're not going to do this every day, anyways. We're just going to kind of do it whenever I can. It makes it a whole lot easier. So, given that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to discuss how important it is to take mental health days. Mental health days are quite important. Like, we don't really take into consideration how important mental health days are. Like, we as adults go through life by our responsibilities, by our obligations, by our daily chores, or daily to-do lists, or honey to-do lists. All too often do we forget to make time for ourselves. And what that means is making time for ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. You know, when we constantly keep ourselves going, when we constantly are in go, 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 go mode, we neglect ourselves. We neglect ourselves emotionally the most. We tell ourselves that our emotions are irrelevant, or we tell them that ourselves that, you know, it's not going to change the outcome of our situation. So why do we focus on them? Our emotions are important to focus on, and I'm learning that a little bit more every day. Coming from a person who likes to ignore her emotions, who likes to place them inside of a little itty bitty box and shove them in the toppest, darkest part of my closet, never to be seen again. So, yeah. When we overburden ourselves with tasks and we constantly spread ourselves too thin, we neglect ourselves. We neglect all the things that our body is telling us that it needs, whether it's exhaustion or food or just some companionship or socialization from another person. You know, all too often do we push that need aside and we continue on with our responsibilities and our obligations. And you know, that's all fine. We're adults. We have to do that. It's called adulting. But we also need to make time for ourselves. That is so important. Yesterday, I probably should have spent the majority of the day studying, considering I have a muscles lecture exam on Thursday, and you know, I need to continue to chunk out and study all of my subjects every day. But besides that, your girl didn't do shit yesterday. Like, didn't do anything productive yesterday. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Because I studied my ass off the night before and the day before. And I intend on studying today. Well, that's definitely on the list. It will get done today. But yesterday, yesterday I had all kinds of other things to do. And, you know, to add homework into that situation and studying would have spread myself too thin. Is that how I thought yesterday? No. My thought yesterday was I didn't want to do shit. I had come home from picking up my medication and spending the day with my sister. And I didn't want to do shit. So I didn't. And you know what? That's okay, because it's called balance. Somebody told me that you have to balance your responsibilities and your playtime. Your playtime is your you time. You have to find a happy balance. You know, and if that means shirking some of your responsibilities for some time, then you know what? Balance yourself out and shirk those responsibilities. Treat yourself emotionally to some comfortability, to some content. Treat yourself emotionally, and you know, the rest will fall into place later. The rest will fall into place later. So with that being said, like, you know, we find ourselves constantly going through life at a pretty steady pace. Some of us a little bit faster than others, and I feel like a lot of the times it's a hurry up and wait type of thing. Like, sometimes we think that if we do things faster, or if we do things in a more efficient manner, that it'll make the next task easier. But really, like, I think it just kind of stresses us out a little bit more, because in that same aspect, we're just spreading ourselves too thin. When we spread ourselves too thin, this opens doors for serious mental health issues. I mean, like anxiety, depression, spreading ourselves too thin creates insurmountable amounts of emotional stress. And that manifests itself in so many different ways, whether it would be anxiety or depression, or literally it makes you physically sick. Like, all too often I find, and I see people, and even some of my friends, like, they will go crazy all year long in school. And then it's like the second they take that last test, they get sick. And it's like they get the worst cold or upper respiratory infection. It's because you're literally spreading yourself too thin. And the stress is manifesting in physical ways inside of your body. Stress does so much damage to the nervous system. I mean, stress kills neurons, okay? And neurons, in case you don't know, they're brain cells. Like, stress kills neurons, all right? Neurons do not regenerate. Once your neurons go, they don't regenerate. They don't go through mitosis. They don't come back. Like, stress kills neurons. Neurons are what you need to think and send synaptic processes from one lobe to another. Like, so when we put ourselves through insurmountable amounts of stress, like, it manifests and it does so many different things to our bodies. I mean, stress can cause mutations during the cell division process. I mean, stress can cause a multitude of things that we don't see. Yeah, the things that we do see is like anxiety, depression, I mean, irritability, rage. Those are the physical manifestations of stress. But what you don't see is so much deeper. You don't see what it's doing on the inside of your body. You don't see the mutations or the cell processes that are going unchecked inside of your body, because you are overloading yourself with stress. And I'm just as guilty of this, because I run off of fucking stress. So I can imagine what the fuck is going on inside my body. But this is what I'm talking about. This is what we so carelessly forget to acknowledge. We neglect that. We neglect ourselves on such a exponential level. And when we do that, we're just destroying ourselves. We're creating more problems. So, like, spreading ourselves too thin, I mean, it's just, we need to make a conscious effort to take some me time. It doesn't matter what you're doing, and myself included. We need to take a conscious effort to make some me time. Whether that me time is devoted to family, or whether that me time is devoted to you just laying in fucking bed doing absolutely nothing. Take some fucking me time. Pardon my language. Take some me time. You'll thank yourself later. I do my best to try to explain how it is I'm feeling to, like, my kids. Because, when I get stressed out, and it's because my kids are around me all the time. Like, my kids are around me more than anybody is. So when I get stressed out, I find myself snapping at my kids. And, they don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. But when I do this, when I find myself snapping at my children, I try to make sure that afterwards I go and apologize. Because it's not their fault that I'm spreading myself too thin. And it sure isn't their fault that I'm agitated or I'm anxious or that I just can't take anymore. It's not their fault. So it's important that I apologize and I try my best to explain it to them. So when this happens, and my oldest, like both my boys they are so smart and they are so kind and they are so caring and I got so lucky with them. But when this happens, I go and apologize to them and I tell them, hey, I'm sorry, mommy lost her cool. Mommy's anxious or mommy just is stressed out, or I don't know what my problem is, but I am so very sorry that I lost my cool with you because you didn't deserve that and you had nothing to do with mommy's attitude. And a lot of the times they'll say, it's okay, mommy. No. And that's where I got to stop them because I make sure every single time those boys know, it doesn't matter who's apologizing to them or what they're apologizing for, that it is never okay for somebody to mistreat you. It is never okay for somebody to make you cry, belittle you, or make you feel anything less than what you are. Nobody has that right. Now, you can forgive them, and you can say, I forgive you, but never say it is okay. Because when you tell somebody that it is okay that they hurt you, that sets the precedence for them to do it again later. It is never okay for somebody to hurt you. And that includes mommy, that includes auntie, and that includes grandpa and anybody else. Nobody has the right to ever make you feel less than what you are. Nobody ever has the right to mistreat you. So when mommy apologizes, I make sure that I tell them that each and every time. Because it's not okay for somebody to hurt you, especially your parents. And if any of you were like me growing up, you had some pretty hard, kind of a little on the cold side for parents. They didn't apologize when they were wrong, or when they yelled at you for no reason, or when they were having a bad day. And I don't hold that against my mom, because my mom did very freaking best she could with me. And if I'm half the mom that my mom was, minus a couple little changes of my own, then I know I've done my job as a mother right, because I had the best mom. I mean, she wasn't always the most affectionate, but my mom was the strongest person in the entire world, and I want my kids to see me that way. But in order for your kids to be close with you, you gotta talk to them. You gotta explain things to them. Like, kids, they're so much more in tune with things than we give them credit for. They understand so much more than we give them credit for. And I'm sure you can kind of remember when you were a kid thinking, when an adult told you, oh, when you're older, you'll understand, or this is adult conversation, you wouldn't know what to do with it. And you kind of sitting there thinking, and you're like, well, why don't you try me? Like, why don't you're kind of wanting that explanation. And I feel like that if you give your children explanations for the things that go on in their life, and you explain things to them, they're less likely to go out there and look for that answer themselves. And they're more apt to being understanding about it in the future. And it gives them an open mind. It gives them a fresher perspective. Where the fuck is my hair tie? So yeah, explain shit to your kids. Explain shit to them. I try to explain everything to my kids. I try to be that parent that my kids can come to and say, hey, I have a question. May not be the most appropriate question, or it may be weird to somebody else. Oh, really? Maybe really weird to somebody else. Sorry, guys, my fucking computer just went off, so that was weird. It may be weird to somebody else, but I want my kid to be able to say, hey, I bet you my mommy has that answer. Or, I bet you I could go to my mommy with this question. That's what I want. That's what I want. Because that's something that I'm sure a lot of my generation didn't have. Like, I don't think any of us could ever really go to our parents for anything. Like, it was just so taboo. Constantly being told, you'll understand when you get older, or because I said so, or, I'm doing this for your own good, or, one day you'll understand. Like, I don't want my kids hearing that. Because that closes their mind off to wanting to ask questions, to being curious, it closes them off to a multitude of things, and it sets them up to be an anxious fucking person later. It sets them up to be an insecure person later. If they can't ask me questions, if they can't freely come to me. So, what I'm saying with that is, that can definitely tie in to how we treat ourselves. If we treat our kids, we constantly treat our kids the way we want the world to treat them. All right, we set them up and we tell them they can be anything they want to be. Do anything they want to do. That their minds are only bound by themselves. But when did we absolutely lose that mindset for ourselves? I think kids, and I realize I'm bouncing all over the place with this, but we're just going to go ahead and roll with it anyways, because it all kind of connects. And this is my blog anyways. But, I think that's kind of where we fall away from children. Is children are they... How would I even go about it? Children are far more open-minded than us adults. They only see the boundaries that we place. We place in front of them. Their imagination, their mind is so open. Like, and we lose that somewhere along the way. Somewhere along the way, we start telling ourselves that we can't do something. We feed our children this information that they can be anybody they want to be, that they can do anything that they want to do. They can go anywhere, they can achieve any dream they set themselves up for. But somewhere along the lines, we've lost that ability to believe that for ourselves. And, I think that's where we fall off in our problem-solving capabilities. Like, children being smarter than what we give them credit for, and us explaining things to them on a deeper level, like, it builds their brains, and it allows them problem-solving skills and capabilities. But, and kids, they're so willing to look for solutions to a problem. In contrast, us adults, we see a problem and we immediately start constructing walls. And we get tunnel vision and we only see one solution to this one fucking problem. Whereas, like, I'm sure if we took our problem to a kid could probably come up with like 30 different fucking things to solve our problems. You know why? Because those kids do not have those I can't boundaries built up in their minds. We need to start treating ourselves with a little bit more respect. We're raising our kids with this respect, and we're teaching them to respect themselves. But we need to remember that we need to fall back in line and respect ourselves too. Because when we don't respect ourselves, and we don't basically practice what we preach, we're constantly belittling ourselves, and we're contradicting ourselves, and we've got little eyes that watch us. So if we're telling them to respect themselves, but we go around the corner and we call ourselves stupid in that very same breath, like, what are we teaching our kids? What are we teaching ourselves? When we constantly belittle ourselves and we place these mental barriers in our own way, mentally, with that, we limit ourselves as to what we can and cannot do. Our stresses, our anxiety, we tend to identify with it so hard that we place these barriers on ourselves with what we can and cannot do with it. Something to think about, I guess, is just, I guess we just need to start. We need to start treating ourselves a little bit better. And we need to start being more forgiving when things don't go the way they planned. We need to start seeing life through the eyes of a child and believing that there are bigger possibilities and there's a light at the end of the tunnel somewhere. And I say this for myself too, because I too often fall into this rut, like, what the fuck is the point? Every day. But we need to see that there is a bigger reason for everything. We need to trust the process, and we need to believe in ourselves a little bit, and we need to see that, hey, you know what? Shit may be fucked up now, but it ain't gonna be like this in the future. We're gonna have bigger problems in the future, but it's going to be so much more different than it is now. So, something to think about is keep your mind open. Be kinder to yourself. Like, the only way we can start truly changing our perspectives is if we start living by them. Practicing what we preach. So, here's me practicing what I preach. I'm going to have a good day, and I hope you guys have a good day too. Until then, see you next time, guys.